Mark has joined us. Don's with us. Welcome, Don. Mark from Tennessee. Don wants to know, see a temporary bottom coming in next week on the SPX. I believe we may have hit it already, Don. Certainly, we'll see how things behave on Monday here, but given some of the bottoming action that we've seen in the last couple of trading sessions, I'm looking at that Neptune square pattern that we were tracking recently, and leading to a generally bullish move here into mid-July from this point. So we may see another day or two of sell-off tweaking that, but essentially that's the kind of pattern that we're looking for. All right, let's get underway here. Glad that you could join us here today. We do begin with our standard disclaimer. We're talking about markets, putting money in markets, and reminding you that past performance does not guarantee future results. That kind of comes with the territory here. You put money in the markets, it is at risk. You can, in fact, lose money as well as make money in the markets. We're going to talk about making money primarily here today, but want you to be fully informed of those consequences as well, that potential. We don't actually know exactly how trades will turn out beforehand. So we do our best to forecast and to plan. That's some of what we're sharing here today. We want you to be fully informed of the risks involved. So welcome to our Ganniversary celebration. We're talking about some W.D. Gann secrets here on a key Ganniversary date. And I want to point out that today is the 19th of June, Juneteenth, in fact, on 2021. We originally made an attempt at offering our webinar yesterday on the 18th of June, and a lot of our material was designed to be presented at the end of the market day on June 18th, on Friday the 18th. Because of the Ganniversary connection here that we'll be talking about in a few minutes, the information is still 100% relevant and up to date. But I did want to point that out, that our original titling of this session came from the fact that we were presenting it on the 18th of June. So we do want to acknowledge that fact as we move ahead here. So there's going to be one or two slides in our presentation that are a little bit dated because of that, but we'll point that out as we move ahead here. So we do want to welcome all of you with our time together here today. We'll spend about an hour and look at a number of factors. First and foremost, this is what we want to accomplish. The main thing is to acknowledge and honor the work and the insights of the legendary astro-trader, W.D. Gann. If you're not familiar with Gann's work, this is a good opportunity to get an introduction to that. And that's one of the reasons we're offering this session here today, to encourage you to take a look at this. We want to highlight some of Gann's tools and techniques that he used and developed in his day. They can, in fact, be very effective for market analysis right now, and you can start using them right away. As we talk about some of them here today, we want to encourage you to take a look at that. And then, of course, we want to inspire you to move ahead, go a little bit more deeply than we can today, so you can transform your approach to your own trading and move your returns from the markets to a higher level. We all want to get to trading that's more rewarding and more successful. What we found is that some of the things we're talking about here today can help you along that path. And so we're going to be talking about exactly how to do that as we move ahead. Our process here for today is that I'm going to go all out during this time together to give you the best value, the most useful information that I can, provided you give me your full attention. Let me know if you have questions, comments along the way. We're set up with a chat box to make that happen. That's the mechanism for asking those questions. And here again, because we had so many glitches in our process yesterday, and we got repeated interruptions with losing internet connections and things of that sort, my expectation is that everything will go 100% smoothly today, and we can make all this happen in an expeditious way to get the information out to you And to make sure that happens, give me the feedback, give me the participation. If you've got a question, go ahead and pop it in the chat box. So what we're going to be doing here is taking questions on the fly. Any questions that come in that you happen to think of along the way, if something doesn't make sense, want a little more explanation, go ahead, pop it in the chat box. We will try to deal with it along the way, assuming that it's relevant to the topic at hand at the moment. We'll roll with that, and then we'll allow some extra time at the end for additional questions. If you've got other questions, as Don did, about what are we looking at in the markets right now, that kind of thing. This is not a webinar that's focusing on current market forecasts, but talking really more about techniques that can be applied in a very, very constructive way to your own trading. And we want to understand what Gann was doing here. So also encourage you to grab a pen and paper. You might want to take some notes as we go through our session here today. Sometimes things are worth writing down. We can't guarantee that, but we do want to encourage you to be ready in case that's the case. And so Don wants to know how Gann can be used for the market next week. We'll be talking about that in a generic sense, Don, and also about some of the signals that have come up this past week here that we believe can provide some answers there as well. So also stick around to the end of the webinar. We're going to be talking at the end special offer for you and a surprise bonus as well that you can get access to. So we'll share all that at the end, and it will give you some opportunities then to extend on and expand on what we're talking about here today. For right now, get focused. Remove distractions. I have turned off my cell phone. Yes. Okay. I have the door closed. I don't think we'll be interrupted here on this end. Do the same. Put out the cat. Do whatever needs to happen to allow some dedicated time together here today. We all get more out of it that way if we can focus on the same thing. I've got my glass of ice water here, and so I'm going to be sipping on that periodically as we go to try to keep my voice functioning. If we've not met before, I am Tim Bost, editor-publisher here at FinancialCyclesWeekly.com. I've been doing this for a number of years here at Financial Cycles Weekly, going back almost 40 years with this publication on a weekly basis here, looking at markets. We're really, though, in a broader sense, all about training and doing sessions like this one, coaching, mentoring, consulting, publishing. We produce tools, techniques to help you out in the markets and help you out with personal prosperity, personal success, whether you're in business or looking to increase and enhance your individual finances. We've got tools for doing that. But the emphasis on astro trading over the years and the focus on applying astrology in market analysis and market timing has earned us the reputation as the global leader in astro trading education. So this is very congruent with that goal as well. I'm the author of a number of books, including one on Gann Secrets Revealed. That's available on Amazon. I've also been featured in a variety of business publications around the world from time to time, Time & Digest, Barron's, Trader's World, and so forth. Regularly featured on Tiger Financial News Network. I'm privileged to be a guest of Larry Pesavento on his program, Trade What You See. We get together every 2 or 3 weeks. I think the next time I'm scheduled is the 30th of June to be his guest there. And we talk about what's going on in the markets in general, the astrological factors and impacting things from behind the scenes. Take a look at S&P, Bitcoin, whatever's going on at the time that catches our interest then. Also been featured in Time & Digest, an interesting publication that spent a number of decades analyzing the performance of market timing services and forecasters. We were typically in the top 10 with Time & Digest. They actually ceased publication a little bit earlier this year. The editor decided after doing it for almost 40 years it was time for him to retire. But we did earn some significant recognition there in terms of their analysis of our methodologies with forecasting. In fact, in 2017, we had top honors there as well. And so we're pleased that the methodologies that we use and teach do hold up under other people's scrutiny and give a consistent level of performance in the markets over time. Gotten lots and lots of praise from and endorsements from other people involved in the markets, like Robert Miner with Dynamic Trader Group. Robert's a great expert and exponent for Elliott wave theory, and has some very, very interesting techniques based on that. He says what we're doing here is worth taking a look at, as does Mahmoud Syed. With Invest in Harmony, says we've helped them figure out some of the mysterious things about the markets along the way through some of the work and writing that we've done and coaching with him. Also, Michael Yorba, interesting fellow, has been over the years a radio and TV talk show host primarily in the financial sector. When we got connected about 15 years ago, he took our basic course in stock market astrology. First time he had encountered astro trading and made a big difference in his personal trading. He's been a fan and a friend ever since. Of course, we also work with individuals, retail level investors, mom and pop folks that put some money into the markets but don't trade full time. In this case, it's a single mom that has gotten great results from, again, following our methodologies and applying them on a regular basis to do part-time trading. So this can work in that context as well. And I also work one-on-one with clients on a regular basis, help them understand the money in their horoscope, and guide them in terms of getting the maximum performance from their native capabilities in performing in the markets and in business and in other situations as well. So just that's a little bit about me here. The question, though, for today is why Gann? Now, I personally have found that WD Gann techniques are very, very important. They've helped me understand financial astrology from a different kind of perspective and have been a key element in being able to trade more successfully along the way by using some of the understandings from Gann. But the question is, why should you pay any attention? All right? What has Gann got for you today? Who was he anyway? So we're talking about William Delbert Gann, who was born in 1878 in Lufkin, Texas. He died 1955 in Miami, Florida. His main body of work then was in the first half of the 20th century, we could say. And he certainly had started his career before the beginning of the 20th century and got past that midway mark by about 5 years there before he passed away in Miami in 1955. But he was an incredible astro trader, and that's one of the reasons we pay attention to him, his ability to integrate astrological understanding with his knowledge of the markets, and to apply that not only to forecasting but to successful trading was one of the remarkable things that he exhibited. So in addition to being an astro trader, he was an amazing market forecaster as well. He had the capacity to create forecasts far in advance with amazing accuracy. And this is one of the astonishing things as you study his work, his ability to do that. And as you begin to understand how he was doing that, it gets even more intriguing along the way. Also, he was a pioneering market technician. By market technician, we mean someone who uses the tools of technical analysis. And that's a very commonplace feature of most market studies today. You can turn on CNBC or look at Investors Business Daily or watch Bloomberg, whatever it is you're looking at as a source of information on the markets. And 9 times out of 10, you're going to see trading charts representing price movements in the markets. This is one of the key tools of technical analysis, which says simply that we can track the ups and downs of prices over a period of time, put that on a chart, on a graph, and then on that basis, learn from there along the way. Don wants to know how he died. I believe it was heart failure, Don. I'm not, he wasn't shot in the streets of Miami, anything of that sort. But as I recall, that was the cause of his death. I don't quote me on that. I don't remember it exactly, but that was in the mid 50s. As a market technician, though, what we have to understand is that this hasn't been around forever, and a lot of this work was originated by W.D. Gann in terms of being able to chart prices and look at them over a period of time and analyze the patterns that were there. It wasn't really until after Gann's death in the mid-1960s that technical analysis began to get a foothold in market studies, and certainly there were folks like McGee and others who wrote books on the methodologies for technical analysis, which have been revised and expanded over the years. And in more recent decades, again, it's something that's very commonplace. We expect a market forecast or a market analyst to be able to handle the technical analysis, that is to say, looking at the charts, which give us a condensed viewpoint of the history of price action over a certain period of time, and then basing our market assumptions on that, as opposed to fundamental analysis, which looks at the profitability of the company whose stock we are trading, and what was going on with that. What kind of market share do they have? What's their profit margins? What kind of competitors? All those kinds of things where we look at the fundamentals of the business as a way of analyzing the desirability of a particular stock. So technical analysis looks at the charts. Gann was a pioneer in that department. He was also an expert marketer. In other words, he not only did his analysis of the markets, was a successful trader, he was also a teacher of other traders and spent a lot of his time promoting his forecasts and his advisory services and his training programs for traders as well. So that was an interesting thing that for his day and age, of course, many decades before the advent of the internet and that kind of thing, but he was advertising in newspapers and doing other things to promote his business, and was very skilled at that over the year. So he's also a somewhat controversial figure, largely because of his marketing efforts. He made some outrageous claims and was able to substantiate most of the claims that he made, but it's interesting there that not everybody agreed with that and kind of doubted his veracity in many cases, and so it's interesting. Okay. Don says he died of stomach cancer. All right, I was not correct. It was stomach cancer instead of a heart failure. Unaware of that. So at any rate, he was a real enigma. Very curious individual. Lots of mysterious things about W.D. Gann that we want to explore a little bit here today. Now, the important thing to understand is that he personally went to very great lengths to inspire other traders to teach his unique methods of forecasting and trading. He was concerned that people should learn to be able to make an income from the markets on a consistent basis. And so it's not just about what techniques do you apply to the analysis, but also how do you manage your money? What do you do to turn your trading into a business and to deal with it in a very sanguine manner in that regard. So that was a lot of the emphasis that he used in teaching other people to engage in trading. But even though he died 66 years ago, his methods are very relevant today. And again, we've seen advances in technical analysis. We want to remember, of course, that Gann did all of his work before computers were available, these digital computers, electronic computers, to do the calculation work that we rely on so much with our market analysis today. That didn't come around until a couple of decades after Gann's heyday there, and so that's been something slow to develop as well. So even though he was working with what, from our perspective, seemed like fairly primitive means, his insights, his knowledge, and what he developed are very relevant to us today. He was able to create highly accurate forecasts on a long-term basis, would go out years in advance and say, this is what the market's going to do, but he could also be successful with short-term trades as well. And this was one of the things that was remarkable about him. He was not just a big prognosticator in terms of seeing mega trends, but also could figure out out how to take advantage of shorter-term market movements. He was a great advocate of swing trading. Did not do day trading. That was pretty difficult in his day because, again, without computerization, if you were trading on an active basis, you were in a brokerage house that had a ticker tape. The prices would come in over the ticker tape, and those would be handed to the chalk boy, who would write on a blackboard the changing in prices of certain heavily traded stocks, of indices, of things of that sort. So it was a matter of standing there and watching it. As the prices came in, they were manually recorded, and so the idea that you could get a speculative edge on an intraday basis was a little bit more challenging. There were people who were active in those trading pits who could do that, but it was not a common kind of phenomenon. Gann also had a deep understanding of the esoteric patterns and the hidden principles that underlie the markets. This is one of the most fascinating things about working with Gann and his information and his methodologies. So he was looking at some of those dynamics that aren't clear to everybody else, and he had a rich background to support that kind of research. He also took a holistic view of the trading experience, and he was very important for him to include a consideration of the trader in market analysis as well. And a lot of his writings, he emphasizes this, that you need to know yourself as a trader. You need to acquire the knowledge. You need to take care of your health, of a variety of things that connected with that. And it's something that has inspired our use of what we call the trading triad today, and how we present information on the markets. We believe here at Financial Cycles Weekly that there are three key considerations. If you're going to be successful in the markets, you must be able to analyze the market and understand things from the broader perspective of what is the market doing, what's the direction that it's taking. You also, of course, have to be knowledgeable about trade setups and understand the timing of trades in order to take advantage of them. But that component of the apex of the triangle at the top there is the trader. And we have the capacity to make the mistakes, to shoot ourselves in the foot, to be inattentive in our trading, and to suffer the consequences of that. And it's also our own level of personal discipline that we can apply to get better results from trading as well. So we kind of work that from both ends. But for Gann, this was a given. If you're going to be trading, we need to look at you as well as at the market and understand what the market's doing, and then understand the right ways to get into trades and how to protect yourself and the trading environment, etc. So this is one of the important dynamics with W.D. Gann, his insistence on including the trader and you as an individual in the understanding the markets if you are going to be effective in the markets. He developed unique analog computing tools that can give us remarkable insights into the market movements of today. When we talk about analog computing, we're talking about things that are comparable to a slide rule. It's a mechanical device that worked, that we can use to compare processes and timing and so forth. And so he developed wheels and dials and charts and whatnot to be able to graph out trading expectations. These were analog computers as compared to digital computers, which we know as the electronic computers of today. So these were mechanical devices of various sorts, including various charts and graphs and sometimes plastic overlays, things of that sort that we'd add to it to help with the understanding of geometric perspectives. He also had a profound understanding of the vibratory energies that move the markets in complex ways. This is one of the most important concepts that we associate with W.D. Gann and his work, the understanding of vibration. And he pointed this out in a number of ways, but these vibrations are expressed in number concepts and in relationships between numbers. They also get expressed in astrological dynamics, the patterns and alignments of the planets, as well as in the cycles of market price fluctuation. And so we're dealing with the patterns that we can discern in market movements, as well as other types of natural patterns, and they can all be expressed in terms of harmonic relationships and and vibrational patterns. And they can give us an enormous advantage as we look for profitable opportunities in today's markets if we understand how to apply these vibrational principles that Gann worked with. Vibrations and harmonics are also the basis for Gann's attention to what he called anniversary dates. And an anniversary date is simply the recurrence of something that happens on an annual basis. And he worked with this in a number of ways. He'd pay attention to anniversaries of astrological phenomena. For example, if we've got a lunar eclipse or a Mars station or a Mercury going retrograde or whatever it may be, that sets up an astrological dynamic that we can go back and look at from the astrological perspective. But in addition to that, that he would say when that occurs, then we want to look at that the recurrence of that calendar date as well. So in other words, if we're dealing with a lunar eclipse, it may happen on May the 9th of a given year, and the next year there won't be a lunar eclipse on May the 9th, but that May the 9th would become an important date for Gann to look at and examine for potential stress in the markets around that time frame. And so it's interesting that he would apply that in a variety of ways. Don says June 20, one of those dates, correct for vibrations. Well, yeah, and indeed, he did put a lot of emphasis on the cardinal ingresses. June 20th, 19th, 20th is the sun's ingress into Cancer. So it's typically 19th, 20th, 21st, somewhere in that time frame, depending on whether or not it's a leap year. But that's a key astrological date then, and the time that the sun moves into the cardinal signs of the zodiac was something Gann gave a lot of attention to in terms of that. So we're looking, but in addition to those cardinal ingresses, which is an astrological phenomenon, we're also looking then through his eyes at the recurring dates on which other astrological phenomena occur. In addition to that, however, he would also focus on just anniversary of calendar dates. Now, this can be an extremely important tool if we spot market inflection points ahead of time or begin to know when we need to be looking for something to happen in the markets. And this is a little bit subjective. Gann used it in different ways, but sometimes we can gain some insights with it. For example, this is the S&P through yesterday's close. These are daily price bars going back a little over a year, back to April of 2020. And so we've got about, 15 months on this chart in daily price bars. And just to see, obviously we have a sustained uptrend overall here. But on the left side there, back on the 11th of June in 2020, we can zoom in on that a little bit here, a little bit fuzzy when we blow it up. But what we see is on on the 11th of June in 2020, we had a significant gap lower. Now, as we look back during the previous couple of trading months, we see several different gaps in the market action. But what was unusual about this was the size of the gap itself, and then the time it took the market to retrace and fill in that gap afterwards. In most cases, we'd see a pretty immediate bounce back up. In a matter of a couple of trading days, gaps had been filled prior to that. So this was pretty significant as we hit into the month of June a year ago. And for Gann, then, what he would do would flag that date. We're going to look at the 11th of June as a significant date. Now, we can try to study the astrological dynamics connected with that and then see when those would recur, but we can also, as he would do from time to time, simply look at the calendar date itself as something that we can get potential impact from in terms of its influence on market action. So on that basis, then, we'd be looking around the 11th of June in 2021. That's the anniversary of that. And lo and behold, this was one day before we hit the top and have seen the market sell off since then. So this may or may not prove to be a really definitive date, but just out of curiosity, it does match up. Now, notice here that we're not seeing a duplication of the market phenomenon itself. We're simply seeing the probability of an inflection point in the trading action. So whereas it was a gap lower on June 11th of 2020, in this case, it was defining a congested top and gave us a signal that we could expect lower prices after that point. So even though we didn't get a sudden gap lower, it's offering us that same kind of insight. So as we look at things then in a longer term perspective, we can flag these inflection point dates. Now, of course, what we can do here is go through that entire period of time, and you notice there are several significant highs and lows during the price fluctuation of the market. As we look at the S&P, we could go back and flag each one of those and say, okay, here's the calendar date associated with that. We haven't gotten to most of them yet. So we can project these out into the future and put them on our calendar and say, okay, we had a significant high, back in mid-September, say, of last year. So we're going to be watching for that same date to come up. This is just one of the techniques that Gann applied. Watch the calendar dates for anniversaries. And this, of course, is what inspired us here to offer this this webinar session. Originally yesterday, as I pointed out, we had publicized it then and had major difficulties keeping our connections with the webinar service and with the internet in general yesterday. Things seem to be very unstable in that regard. But the fact is, yesterday was a personal anniversary, and that was one of the reasons we decided to offer the webinar originally yesterday, not knowing that we do an encore performance here today based on just wanting to deliver this information here. But as we note here, William Delbert Gann, born June 6th, 1878, died June 18th, 1955. Yesterday was exactly 66 years after his death, and so we wanted to observe that as an anniversary, and it's apropos of trading for the current. I'm not sure there. So okay, looks like 5-7 is when it started looking at the chart. Very similar. Okay. So yeah, in other words, we start looking for these points and then seeing the correspondence of them in anniversary dates. So this is a personal anniversary date. We called it the Ganniversary here. So that was just our excuse for choosing that time to offer this webinar. We're very fascinated in Gann's studies. Now, he was very, very prolific, by the way. He wrote a number of books, I think about a dozen different books. He wrote newsletters, had forecasting services and market timing services, which he'd send out letters to private individuals as well, answer their questions. He wrote articles and was quoted in articles, and he developed training programs, training courses to help other people understand his timing techniques. And so you sign up for one of his courses and get a big ring binder full of stuff and typewritten pages. Of course, this was pre-Xerox machines even when Gann was doing his work. So it was interesting that there was a lot of manual labor in producing and reproducing the courses that he distributed. So I believe he used mimeograph in some cases. We'll see. But for many of his students and people who jump into Gann studies today, this can be pretty confusing. I say hopelessly here, but we'll revise that. There's always hope, right? And so, this is can be a very confusing kind of dynamic. And the question is, where does this confusion come from? In other words, we can study different methodologies of analyzing the market, of planning our trading, of making forecasts, and we may not understand it all completely, but generally we can figure stuff out if we persist with learning a technique. With Gann studies, however, there seems to be a lot of confusion on a pretty consistent basis. What was he doing and why, and how does all this stuff relate to each other that he did? Now, some of this comes from the complexity of what Gann did. As we've tried to indicate here, he had a far-reaching awareness of stuff and integrated very, very diverse fields of study and applied it to the markets in very unusual ways. Just the complexity of how Gann was relating the moving pieces from a lot of different domains adds to the confusion to some degree, because there's a lot to kind of unravel there. And as well, we want to point out that Gann deliberately created confusion himself at times. Now, he was very much a master of the techniques and approaches that he used in his market analysis. It's not so much that he wanted to keep them secret or away from other people, but he wanted to encourage his students to do the work for themselves in mastering the techniques that he was using. And so he would give fragmentary information or talk symbolically in different ways. And in doing so, what would happen is that there would not always be a clear picture of what he was saying, and you needed to kind of dig a little bit more deeply and learn to apply it in various ways. So that was a big piece of what he was all about, and kind of digging in at a deeper level himself, but also kind of veiling things a little bit and being a little bit oblique in what and how he was saying things, using symbols at times, and deliberately offering these kind of evasive hints and links to things, kind of putting down breadcrumbs for his students to follow, so that they could figure it out for themselves. And so that's part of what yields or contributes to, should we say, some of the confusion around Gann's work, because he was trying to veil it in different ways. Also, of course, we have the fact that after Gann died, it was 6.5 decades ago, immediately there was a cottage industry that sprang up trying to interpret his work, especially when his work became known a little bit broader circle, and other people began to apply techniques to the markets and claim that they were applying Gann methodologies. Then it generated a stronger reputation, and there have been a number of folks who have attempted to teach Gann's methods since his death in the mid-1950s. Along the way, simply because they've been in a very competitive frame of mind, and oftentimes will dispute each other and their understandings of Gann's approaches, and get pretty vigilant, and sometimes nasty about it, actually. in some cases, has added to that atmosphere of confusion along. That's a part of what we're looking at here. Let's see, am I good there? Okay. However, I think the big reason for the confusion is that it's difficult to see all of Gann's work in an integrated way. We have fragmented perspectives. Some people will get fascinated by Gann's work with angular projection lines on a trading chart and focus on the Gann lines or the fan effect of the Gann lines that he would use. Other people get absorbed with some of the analog calculation tools that he used and try to figure out the relationships there. Some people look for astrological symbolism and applications and try to apply that. Others get obsessed with his use of numerology. And there are a lot of different factors there, but typically what will happen is most Gann students and Gann teachers will grab one of these things or a couple of these things, focus on that, and end up giving a very fragmented look at what Gann was doing, and it's kind of skewed through a particular filter, a particular lens that does not give the complete picture. It's unfortunate, but it's an inevitable result when folks are not looking at the whole picture. So to really understand the importance of Gann and his market methods, we have to get the whole picture. And that's one of the things that we wanted to emphasize here today with this session, is that it's possible to do that, but we have to understand that as a goal in and of itself. We have to learn something about the man who developed these unusual trading methods and forecasting strategies to kind of round out our perspective, because if we understand some things about him as an individual, then it starts to make more sense as to why he's combining things that on the surface look like a pretty weird mix of stuff. And that's why we've created a complete training course in Gann Plan Trading Success. We'll talk about that course a little bit later on here today. But this has been a matter of some study and focus for us. In other words, how do we understand the best way to connect with this knowledge and assimilate this knowledge along the way? So what about Gann the man? What was he really like? We know that he was born in 1878. That happened born at home to a cotton farming family in Lufkin, Texas. And he had 10 younger siblings. He was the oldest of 11 children. And so kind of got left on his own for a lot of the time in terms of what he explored. But he was raised in the Baptist church, grew up constantly reading the Bible. That was the book that got read the most, with very few other resources available. And so he spent a lot of time in Bible study on an individual basis, puzzling over what was there and trying to figure it all out. His Bible scholarship is a very, very important part of Gann's thinking and his approach to his trading, as well as his ability to time things and study the markets from a variety of perspectives. And this is one of the things that's very unusual and quite distinctive to Gann's work. There have been other market astrologers and timers, most notably George Bayer, who also used biblical studies, but Gann's approach was an obsession with the timing elements in the Bible. And he quoted the Bible very, very frequently in his writings. In fact, one of his books called The Magic Word has very brief paragraphs written by Gann, and they'll introduce a certain topic, and mention the topic and what it means and why it's important in trading, and do so in 2 or 3 sentences, and then we'll give you 12 Bible verses, the quotations from the Bible, to support his opinions on that particular topic. And so reading that book is more or less reading a collection of Bible verses with a few comments from Gann thrown in along the way. But it makes it very clear what he considered important and why. He was also fascinated by biblical numerology. He avidly studied the cycles that are mentioned in biblical passages. And a lot of these occur in the boring parts of the Bible, like genealogies, lists of people, and who was the son of whom, and who was the son of that, and who was the grandfather, and how many years they lived. And so we get these long genealogical lists, and Gann would study the sequence of the ages of the patriarchs and try to determine, is there a cycle being revealed here? He was also looked into individual numbers with his numerology, because he found certain ones repeated in the Bible in significant ways. He explored specifically 3, 7, 9, and other numbers as well. A lot of emphasis on 12 and other key numbers here. But he did vast amounts of study and writing in these areas, just trying to figure out, what does this mean in terms of harmonic relationships? And it's mentioned in the Bible, so that it must be important. Now, how do we apply this understanding to the action in the markets? So very, very rigorous application of that. And it doesn't mean that you have to become a Bible scholar to understand Gann completely, but you do have to acknowledge that this was one of the things that influenced his thinking. And so once you have that perspective, a lot of the other stuff that he says begins to make more sense. His passion for numbers led to his creation of some rather strange but very, very powerful computing tools, as we mentioned here. These empowered remarkable insights into market movements with uncanny accuracy. And so we have surviving copies of some of those tools. One of the ones that he came up with was the square of 9. And this is a representation in Gann's own handwriting there of the square of 9 dynamic. And it is a concentric circle pattern of numbers. And so you connect angles on a grid work overlaying circular patterns relating numbers, and then can tell the relations between them in ways that can empower you to forecast prices, given certain gaps of time there, or time intervals. And so it's a very, very challenging instrument to use. There's been a good bit written on that. And as I say, some Gann teachers focus just on this one tool and say, if you want to understand Gann, do this, learn this thing. And he had other tools as well, some hexagonal patterns and other types of charts and calculation diagrams that he used. This is one of the more popular or widely known ones, the square of 9. He had an amazing theoretical mind that understood complex concepts. He could determine very, very refined relationships between concepts. But his work was also very clearly focused, grounded in real-world experience. He grew up again on the cotton farm. So that background gave him some important firsthand experience in the physical commodities markets. When you're farming cotton, you want to make sure that you got the right weight and you're getting the right price for the cotton when you take it to market. If you don't, you go broke. And so that was a concern. And as the firstborn son there, working with his father, he began to take on some of those chores that came with the farming and getting the cotton to the market. And gained some firsthand knowledge along the way. He also worked for a time in cotton warehouses and began to see this is where the cotton's in the warehouse before it goes to the docks to be shipped off, and we got the auctions going on, the bidding for the prices, and he began to understand the importance of price fluctuations in trading and could see that with changing weather conditions and the changing supply and demand, there would be price fluctuations. So he had that firsthand knowledge of dealing with real world commodities up close and personal, so to speak, right? Now, we want to point out that he never finished grammar school. I think he may have attended 1 or 2 grades there before he began to take on more family responsibilities. Never went to high school, and he was mainly self-taught. He read the Bible, he read whatever other books he could get his hands on, and eventually did take some classes. As a young man, he went to work at a brokerage house in Texarkana. And then that's when he began also enrolled in night school, took some business classes, learned a little bit about accounting and whatnot, so that kind of rounded out the educational background, such as it was. But largely, when we're looking at Gann, we're talking about somebody who was self-taught, who brings that unique kind of autodidactic expression to what he's doing. He started trading when he was 24 years old. Fairly young, kind of still wet behind the ears, but he had been hanging out with the cotton markets and began to do a little bit of speculation on the side there. And then in 1903, he was 25, and he left Texas, moved to New York City, and went to work on Wall Street at a brokerage. Now, that's quite a move to make at that time, or even today. And, again, without the lack of formal education or experience on Wall Street per se, he was able to parlay the experience that he had to get a job at a brokerage firm. And basically what he did there was soak up as much information about how brokerages worked as he possibly could, because it didn't take him long, about a year and a half, before he opened up his own brokerage. There was W.D. Gann and Company. At that time, of course, the regulations made it, or lack thereof, made it a whole lot easier to go in business as a broker. And so he was able to do that fairly fluidly along the way. And, he just hung up his shingle, said, okay, now I'm a broker. And he started taking people's money and making the trades on their behalf. And he began to see just how stupid most of the people were. He refined his market strategies as he studied the big mistakes that his clients made. So he learned from their losses and with their money along the way as to what worked, what didn't work. Even though he was able to collect some commissions as a broker, which helped keep him afloat, I think the real benefit to him was being able to see firsthand the market experience there on the basis of the clients and how undisciplined they can be as traders, which really set the stage for a lot of his own work. But in 1908, then, a few years after he'd gotten his start there as a broker, he made a major discovery. And this was a breakthrough for him. He said in his later writings that in August of that year, he had discovered the real workings of what he called the law of vibration. And then he began to apply it to the markets. Now, Gann was pretty opaque about what the law of vibration is and how it works. He wrote about it in different contexts at different times. And it's very, very clear this was a pivotal concept for him, and his understanding of it and its applications and variations, what led to a lot of his success in the markets. But he was very, very clear as when he figured that out. It was August in 1908. And what happens, the law of vibration connects universal forces, planetary rhythms, harmonic resonances, and the hidden cycles in the markets. And according to Gann, it's how the entire universe operates. And he talked about the mysterious things that were just coming into vogue or had been discovered at that time, like radio waves, the ability to transmit things through invisible waves in the air and hear something at a distance. This was very, very new in 1908, that time frame. He became very, very aggressive then as all of a sudden as a marketer of his investment advisory services. And in other words, in his eyes, he thought he had gotten it figured out, and people should start paying him for that. And so, and Don says Tesla knew of law of vibration. There are other people that explored that. In fact, Gann, in some of his work, referenced other people who had done seminal research in that area. But it's interesting because it remains very mysterious exactly how much he knew. We're trying to track down now what he read, who he may have come into contact with, and but it's certainly a very, very powerful concept and core to understanding Gann's work. So we spend a lot of time exploring that in some of our coursework and further studies. 1909, the next year, however, was really a critical year for W.D. Gann, in a very interesting way, because he got an article written about him. There was a publication called The Ticker and Investment Digest. This was actually a precursor to the Wall Street Journal, and there was a chain of publication there. Eventually they changed the name and expanded the format and shifted things around. But in the issue for December 1909, they published an article by a fellow named Wyckoff, had written the article on W.D. Gann and his work and his forecasting and his understanding of how the markets work. It was a very interesting and in-depth piece. And of course, this was a fairly widely read publication, at least within the context of the financial markets. And so it gave Gann a lot of publicity. And what happened here, what was interesting, though, was when Wyckoff started interviewing Gann, and Gann was explaining how he was doing all this stuff, Wyckoff said, all right, look, you got to prove it. So I want to watch you trade, and we're going to write down your trading experience. They did this in October of 1909, and the article was published in December, so it took a few weeks to get it all put together. But during that time frame in 1909, over a 25-day period, this is 25 trading days actually in October, and then they were trading then 6 days a week. The markets were open on Saturdays as well. But during that time frame, Gann executed 286 trades. Of those, 264 he took profits. They were winning trades. And he lost money on 22 of those trades, which gave him a batting average of 92% winning trades. And that was totally mind-boggling then, and it is right now, obviously. But also he multiplied his capital by 1,000% during that 25-day period. So Wyckoff kind of set this up as an experiment just to see how good this guy was, and was totally amazed that Gann was able to demonstrate this in real-time trading. This is how we do it. Here's when you buy, here's when you sell. And so he demonstrated conclusively under third-party observation that his methods did in fact work. And that generated a lot of interest in what he was doing, obviously. That article made his reputation. However, he didn't rest on his laurels. He still continued to push very hard with his marketing efforts to promote what he was doing incessantly for the entire remainder of his life. This is 1909, or really 1910 by the time that the article was distributed, published in December 1909. By the time it was spreading around in 1910, we're talking another 45 years that Gann lived and continued to push things as well. And then I almost know how many tickers back then were trading. It was dozens, not hundreds at that point. And so it was a much simpler market to look at. But he also wrote his own books. He marketed the books, promoted those. He produced market newsletters. He had advisory services. He took out ads in newspapers to promote his advisory service. Try it for a month for $1, that kind of thing. He worked tirelessly to educate traders to become more successful in the markets. And as we say, a lot of those efforts were pretty challenging. And it was also not cheap, right? In 1950, he sold his master's stock market course for $2,500. If we adjust that for today's inflation rate over time, that would be like charging $27,000 in today's currency, U.S., to get the equivalent price for what $2,500 would buy in 1950. So it was a pretty substantial investment to get his stock market course at that time. Even more so if you bought his commodities training course, right? That was $5,000, which would be worth $54,000 in today's inflation-adjusted currency. So again, when you paid that much at the time, that was roughly the equivalent of buying a modest home, a small house you could buy for $50,000 or so. You know, comfortable one, not a mansion by any stretch of the imagination. But you go out and buy yourself a house, or you could buy Gann's course on how to trade commodities. So that was kind of the status of Gann in terms of how he positioned himself with his marketing. Now, his marketing success and his self-promotion, he was always bragging about what he could do and how accurate his work was. Even though some of his forecasts were not 100% accurate, he emphasized the ones that were, and he went back again and again and again and republished and distributed that article from the ticker in 1909 to say, this is the evidence of what I can do here. And so got good mileage out of it, but also made a few enemies along the way. There were people who said, listen, this guy's obviously totally full of beans here because nobody can do what he claims to be able to do. And then Gann would do another demonstration. He'd say, okay, I'm going to tell you exactly what price wheat will trade at next week and do the forecast, and it will be accurate within 1 cent. And so it was interesting to watch his work. So he was a very, very successful then at speculation. And he defined the profession as a speculator. In other words, if you understand speculation in the appropriate way and treat it as a business, you can make a good income doing it, was one of his key concepts that he promulgated at the time there. But he was also a very skilled synthesizer. And as we mentioned here, a lot of the diversity of his background, these ideas got combined by him in his approach to the markets. And this is something that's overlooked, I think, in a lot of Gann's studies, his ability to bring diverse ideas and concepts together, and so that they work together much, much more effectively than trying to apply them one at a time. He was also very dedicated with his spiritual practice. This is a more personal kind of thing, but Gann got personal in some of his writings and talked about what was important to him in terms of his spiritual practice, which included times of prayer and meditation and chanting. He was very much active with that as a part of a spiritual discipline that he developed for himself. Certainly he grew up in a religious background, but it was not adhering to the doctrine and religion of a particular religion as much as it was a self-developed practice that he worked with. He was also an advocate of natural health techniques. And so, again, there was lots of information being spread around in the early years of the 20th century about various kinds of treatments and things that you could do. And he, for example, was a big fan of nude sunbathing and would believe that the body could soak up positive energy that way. Didn't say anything about vitamin D. I'm not sure that was on the radar at that time, but he found that to be a beneficial practice, and other things in terms of diet and so forth that he advocated. He also was active in Masonry. He was the 33rd degree Freemason, the highest level of advancement within that esoteric fraternity, and so it was interesting, to see his work there. And again, a lot of his understanding of market symmetry it comes from that Masonic lore as well. And I've worked with some Gann students who are Freemasons themselves who say that, look, this is one of the major keys to deciphering a lot of what Gann's work is all about. And also, we don't want to miss the fact that he was a master astrologer. Now, Gann himself understood a lot about astrology, and it was very, very important at that time, to him to get a grasp on the planetary cycles and their dynamics in the markets. Occasionally, Gann would work with a client, and we have letters from him to clients talking about his analysis of their horoscopes in terms of the transits to their horoscopes and favorable periods of investment, etc., based on his analysis of clients' horoscopes. So we know he had the astrological knowledge. We also know that Gann employed at least two fairly well-known astrologers of his day to do a lot of his research work. And so he was very much in favor of that, but he did not promote his services as an astrologer. He was not out trying to attract astrological clients per se, and he was very, very discreet in his talking about astrology in his publications. He mentions astrology in certain contexts, and it's always in a very approving kind of context there, but at other times he talks about simply using what he called science to understand market movements. And it's kind of a code word that he began to use for astrology in many contexts to tone down some of the controversy around it, quite honestly. So interesting figure in how he balanced all of these different things. He combined his astrological work with an understanding of math, of geometry, esoteric sciences to get some really, really extraordinary results in the markets. And learning about W.D. Gann's amazing contributions can open up gigantic possibilities for your success in the markets today. And that's one of the reasons we wanted to share this information today, to kind of give you a quick introduction, a sense of the wonderful and bizarre things that are there. But the fact is, Gann was able to get extraordinary results in terms of accuracy of forecasting and developing viable trading models that worked very, very well then and can work very well now as well. So Gann's work is big. It's very vast in scope, covers a lot of different things. The knowledge goes down very deep when you get into certain aspects of it. So it's very, very critical, I think, to get a solid start when you want to begin to engage with Gann's ideas in a serious way. So what we've tried to do here today in our time together is give you kind of a quick overview and a sense of what's involved there. Some of the things that Gann used, the tools that he used, the results he was able to get, and also this very strange and unique combination of factors that went into his thinking that need to be accommodated. So when I talk about getting a solid start, it's easy to jump into Gann and focus on just one aspect of what he was doing and go off on a tangent and then get lost in a hurry and misunderstand a lot of important factors that can make a real difference for you. And that's exactly why we created what we feel is one of the best ways to get connected with Gann effectively in our introductory Gann class. And we refer to this as Gann Plan Trading Success 101. And it's a class that we've developed specifically for the purpose of providing an overall orientation and a solid start for working with Gann dynamics. And this is a reminder to me. I put this slide in here for a purpose, because if I can figure out what button to click, I can make this show up on your screen. Let's see if I do that. Okay, that should be showing up there somewhere. And so this is a button that you can click to connect with this class that we have available. So I just wanted to make sure that that was visible at that for you. Okay, so the class itself is specifically designed to help you by clearing up as much of the confusion around Gann as we possibly can during the time together in that class experience. And so we've put a lot of thought, a lot of work into saying, now, how do we sort all this out in a way that can help you make sense without getting too deep in the weeds instantly? It was created to inspire you to jump into Gann's concepts easily and enthusiastically. When you engage with it, you'll find a lot of fascinating information, stuff that you want to apply right away, but we want to make that as easy as possible, and the aim here is to do it from kind of a level of excitement and enthusiasm, because when you begin to see how well some of these concepts actually work, it's easy to get very, very excited. So we're trying to get you over that hump to say, okay, give this a try. You're going to be blown away with what happens here. The class is here to provide the solid tools, unique perspectives, and key insights. They're going to give you a turbocharged jumpstart in getting all the Gann benefits for yourself. We want to make sure that you can do this fast. In our class, we explore Gann personally, the enigmas associated with him. We've talked a little bit about that here today in this session. We go into much more depth with a lot of that. We look at Gann's unique tools, like the Wheel of 24, the Square of 9 that we mentioned earlier. We examine the amazing techniques that gave Gann such incredible results in his trading and in his forecasting. There were specific things that he worked with, and he established a whole set of trading rules to be applied as well. And all of that comes into the mix here in understanding what he was doing to actually get the results in the markets. We integrate the unique features of Gann's knowledge from the holistic perspective that he originally intended. He never intended for his work to be kind of sliced and diced and used in fragmented way here. And you know, that's interesting enough. There are a lot of Gann experts out there that are so-called that will focus on just one or two of these dynamics, and they miss this picture of the need to figure out how everything fits together, how it all integrates in a holistic approach to Gann's work. And that's what we've worked on providing specifically within the format of this class. So this is a program that makes getting started with Gann completely fun, safe, and easy for you. It doesn't have to be a headache, and it can actually be highly motivating, especially as you start to get results with this. However, we want to share a word of warning here. Getting involved in Gann work can be actually quite expensive, depending on where you're getting your information from and what you're trying to do with it. So having said that, you know, we kind of, basically in keeping with Gann's personal marketing strategy, he put high prices on his courses because he understood the value that was there in terms of the ability to transform someone's life. If I can train you to do a successful business in trading in the markets, then you can make money for the entire rest of your life. So his notion was go ahead and charge adequately for that based on what you can anticipate making out of it in the longer term. But anyway, in following that model that Gann used, a lot of today's Gann training and software programs are offered typically at fairly substantial prices. And, you know, there are a number of them out there. This is Optuma, which has this is a software program that is supposed to kind of guide you through using Gann techniques. You can get it at either $14.95 or $24.95. I believe that's for an annual subscription there. And also here's a Gann Harmony on the Law of Vibration, Jerome Baumring. Here's a book that sells for $3,600 that's going to give you an orientation in Gann dynamics. Here, this one is $49,900 for that one. So, you know, again, based on the sources here, this is A Law of Vibration by the Numbers, 750-page book, a little bit bigger there, but it's just $6,000 for that one. So you can see, you know, as there are lots of things available in terms of learning Gann. And typically they have high price tags associated with that. We're not going to charge you $49,900 for this Gann Plan Trading Success 101 course. We don't pretend that this will make you a lifetime expert in Gann. It is, however, a solid way of getting started, and it's priced appropriately. It's not even $6,000. Right? And that's because we've specifically designed this program to be easily affordable. The aim here is to get enough people involved with it that you can get the benefits. And so there should not be a big barrier to getting involved with this course. That's our philosophy here. So you can use this little link that we put on the side of the screen there. You should see that. Or if we're recording this, if you're watching the recording and not seeing that link for some reason, we'll give you the URL to go to here. http://bit.ly/WDG101. Everything is lowercase there except for WDG for WD Gann, and it's 101 class that we're offering there. So that should be easy to remember. If you type that in your browser, it'll take you directly to the order page here. So with this little icon that you see on the side of your page, what you want to do is click on that blue button at the bottom there. It says, yes, I want this course now. that doesn't do the purchase. What it does is actually direct you to an order page here. Again, or you can use that link that we just mentioned there if you don't see that. If the button doesn't work for some reason. So the question is, how much is the tuition for our Gann Plan Trading Success 101 program here? And what we have here is tuition is just $199.97 a month for 3 consecutive monthly payments. So we've broken it down into a payment plan in an effort to make it as doable and as affordable, as much of a no-brainer as we possibly can here to get engaged with this right away. So for $199.97, you can get started right away, and then what happens is we process the first payment today, and then at 30-day intervals there are 2 additional payments, so it's 3 altogether at that price. Or you can make a single payment of just $597.95, save a little bit there, a couple of bucks that way, if you prefer just to get it out of the way and not have the repeated billing. So those are the options there in terms of the tuition. And again, we want to keep it low, especially by comparison to some of the other fairly outrageous prices. At least I'm not sure that the same value is there. I am sure the value is here, however, in our class on Gann Plan Trading Success 101. So what will this unique training program do for you once you go ahead and get this? This is a one-of-kind training course in WD Gann studies, which includes immediate lifetime access for you to a complete set of training videos. We also have downloadable MP3 files, so you can listen to the audio separately if you wish. The instructional material, also downloadable PDFs, and a lot of other things there that provide study aids throughout the course experience. So it is something that's delivered online, and it is you get complete access to all the lessons as soon as you sign up for it. It's not something that we drip out gradually over time, so you can really work with it at your own pace there. During our class in Gann Plan Trading Success 101, we do a deep dive into the unique perspectives and tools that WD Gann used to create his amazing success in the markets. You're going to discover how you can apply those same remarkable tools and perspectives in your own encounters with the markets today. That's the whole point, after all. In other words, not just to learn what Gann was doing, but figure out how to apply it. Our class also explores Gann's use of numerology in deciphering the powerful harmonic forces that drive the real action in the markets. And we look at Gann's use of astrology as well. And we also examine some of the unique properties in his personal natal horoscope, talk about that a little bit for those of you who want to get a little bit more deeply engaged in the astrological dynamic. There's material there as well for you. We review Gann's use of the Wheel of 24, one of the key computational tools that he used, and also the square of 9, and using that in market forecasting, explain how they work, how you can put them to work, and we even give you instructions for creating your own square of 9 for your personal use. We actually include a PDF template for that, so that you can work with whatever market you're working with and get the appropriate numbers applied in that to begin to use that as a forecasting device. So try to be as comprehensive and as supportive as we can with this program. We examine some of the intriguing personal experiences that shaped Gann's life and ideas. Gave you a little hint of that today, but that gives you a much richer and useful way of understanding what Gann was actually doing in the markets as you begin to understand some of these factors that came into play, because he was making decisions about his market forecasting and his own trading based on his ability to integrate these diverse areas of knowledge. And above all, this class is going to instantly put you on the right path to getting the maximum benefit from Gann's genius in a way that cuts through the confusion, cut through the crap. I want to give you the kind of superior knowledge that really makes a difference for you in the markets. So if you're ready to take a step into a richer, more profound level in connecting with the markets, this class is ready for you now. And so it's simply a matter here of clicking on that button to say that you would like to connect with this. Once you do that, it will take you to a page that looks like this. This is the order form page on a website here. And you'll note here that you can select either payment option, the 3-payment plan, $199.97 a month, or the single payment plan of $597.95, whichever you prefer, which some people prefer to just handle it all at once, and others want to spread it out. That's fine. Either option is available to you right there on the order page, so you can work with that accordingly, depending on what works best for you. Oh, we mentioned that at the beginning we've got a surprise bonus coming up as well. Let's see. We'll talk about that. Let's see. It says, do you use these techniques? Have you had success with them, Tim? In what markets? What are you seeing for this summer solstice as relates to Gann? Okay. Well, we're looking for the summer solstice to be a fairly significant inflection point. That's coming up right now here. And as we pointed out, we've got this short-term pullback that was triggered by that anniversary date on the 11th of June, and as we move out of this solstice, we're looking for that to spur higher prices in the markets. And yes, we regularly use Gann's techniques. We don't try to duplicate everything that he did, but the methodologies and approaches that he took inform our trading and our studies on an ongoing basis, and wouldn't try to do it without it, Anita. It's just the way I would put it. In other words, there's enough there that it keeps me learning new things and exploring new concepts as well, and constantly being amazed at how well Gann's concepts work. So we did mention that there's a bonus attached to this if you decide to go ahead and join us for this class today. Your unique bonus is actually based on a sneak preview of something that's coming up. We've got an exciting development coming up next month, and we wanted to share information about that here really for the first time publicly. So you're kind of getting a sneak preview of that, and the bonus relates directly to that. We've had, of course, this program that we have right now is Gann Plan Trading Success 101, and we're getting ready to do 102, which is the next class in the series. It's been a couple of years here as a new development as we moved into this, and this will be launching here next month in July 2021. So we're just a few weeks away here from the formal announcement of this and beginning of enrollment with that. So that's why we're mentioning this here, because during this new course, we're going to be focusing on some very specific techniques that Gann developed that have become highly refined and an integral part of our work today. This is something that you should be aware of, Anita, and I'm sure Don and some of the others here that have signed up are familiar with our work on planetary price lines. This is grounded 100% in Gann's studies. We've got more modern and refined tools for applying those and studying those. And we're going to be doing a very, very deep analysis based on Gann's work with planetary price lines and understanding how they work and how you can use them in forecasting and in active trading in terms of defining support and resistance and looking for trading opportunities and confirming other technical analysis tools. So very, very excited about this new Gann Plan Trading Success class, our series number 102. The 101 sets you up, gives you the basics, gets you started on the right path, and this will accelerate all of that. And again, excited about being able to even mention it here today. But if you join us today for Gann Plan Trading Success 101, we're going to give you a bonus coupon code that'll be worth $500 toward the tuition for Gann Plan Trading Success 102. So we want you to be able to get into that class at the lowest possible price as well. And so that's why we're encouraging you to get the basics done right now. And with that, then it'll set you up for the next class as well with that $500 coupon code bonus. So questions at this point? Anita says, okay, thanks. Have you done more research since your previous book on Gann techniques that will be relevant? Yeah, and a lot of that research is coming through this newer class. We've got some of this in of the research. That book was published, was it 2008, 2009, something like that. I think it was 2009. And so we've done a tremendous amount of research since then. It doesn't make that book obsolete, but we've augmented it in a lot of ways, Anita. and a good bit of that is in the Gann Plans Trading Success 101 class, and even more of it in the new class that we'll have coming out next month. So we're really wanting to push ahead in this area. We've been pulled in lots of directions over the years, but we keep coming back to the Gann studies, and it's always there are always folks interested in that. And so our aim right now is to formalize this, codify it more, and be able to move it ahead for deeper understanding and more rewarding experiences. So I hope that answered your question. I hope so. But the answer is yes. There's more research being done, and the original book from 15 years ago, whatever it was, is still relevant, but there's more updating there. What that does is set down some basic principles that you'll want to be able to assimilate there. Okay. Other questions or concerns? We've got the chat box open here. We're ready to wrap things up. As we work with this, I'm glad to get your input, and any questions that you have about the class, about Gann, about anything else under the sun, this is the time to pop them in there, and we'll take time together to take a look at them. And if not, we will wrap things up here. Let's see here. So I do want to thank you for joining us here today. Remember, there are just 3 steps to take, and let's explain exactly how that works once again here. First thing to do is click the link to go to the order page. You should see that little button, blue button there on the side of your screen, or if you're not seeing that, looking at the replay video or what have you, go to bit.ly/WDG101, and that's capital W, capital D, capital G. Everything else is lowercase. When you do that, either clicking on the button or going to that URL, it will take you to the order page. There you select your payment plan, fill in your contact information, fairly straightforward, what's your name, what's your email address, et cetera, and then which payment plan do you prefer. You can check either one there, and it will automatically set you up there for whichever is more convenient and workable for you along the way. Then finally, after that, we have step 3. We're going to send you an email. Once you click the button and submit your payment on this, allow about 30 minutes, because this is a manual step. We've got to generate a password that will let you into the website where the information is stored for the class, and also get the coupon code and stuff generated for you. So that will come to you in an email. And again, we try to automate as much as we can here, but that is a manually generated password, so it takes a little bit of time depending on how many orders we have to process. So give us about 30 minutes to 45 minutes, something like that, to make that happen. Solomon says, do you think we have a greater chance to understand more than Gann did with the use of computers, etc.? Interesting. Yes and no. That would be my honest, vacillating answer there. The yes is certainly. Computers help us a great deal in understanding the back testing and being able to validate some of Gann's concepts, and fine-tune our ability to apply them in specific ways. So that is a big, big plus here. Specifically in our new course, and again, Plan Trading Success 102, we're going to be focusing on the use of the planetary price lines. And this is an area in which Gann did all of his work by hand on graph paper, and it would take him literally days to create one of these diagrams, and we can do so now with the aid of computers in a matter of a couple of minutes. That's a phenomenal kind of thing to have available. So certainly we can accomplish more just in terms of the overall grunt work and the productivity and how much we can cover. The other part of it, though, is the internal kind of focus that Gann brought to the markets himself. And that's what was really extraordinary, the amount of study that he did, the amount of knowledge that he accumulated, the steadiness of his spiritual practice, his understanding of the integration of diverse principles, This was a very remarkable individual. And in answer to your question, do we have a greater chance to understand more than Gann did? Well, yeah, we do. But it takes that same kind of dedication, ultimately, I think, to try to equal his knowledge and insight. Yeah, I like to use the word inspiration a lot in working with Gann. And in answer to Anita's question earlier, have done more research. Yeah, Gann's work is essential in what I do. But I'm not here to try to duplicate what he did, but to be inspired by that and to take it a step farther and to test some of the principles that he used. And there are certain things that are absolutely rock steady that I would not do without in my own work. There are other things that I still, I won't say I struggle with, but I'm still reaching, I'm still grasping to be able to integrate all of the diverse things that Gann was able to do very, very naturally, simply because of his vast background in, live cotton trading and in the Bible and in studying numerology. He made a trip to India at one point. Solomon's asked about Vedic astrology. And certainly Gann was aware of that. In his applications of astrology, he used the Western system, but we know that he did travel to India, and some of his analog computers were derived from devices that Indian grain traders were using at the time in the early years of the 20th century. And so there's kind of a great cross-cultural fertilization that went on there. Notice on the natal charts again, he had Mercury and Pluto on the midheaven. Maybe our own natal charts give us clues too. Yeah, that Mercury-Pluto conjunction, very, very powerful. And hitting the midheaven that way, he was a remarkable intellect, no question about it. So we don't have to have a Mercury-Pluto conjunction in your chart. Doesn't hurt, but to equal Gann's work, and certainly an understanding of the natal chart is a critical piece of this. We mentioned earlier Gann's emphasis on working with the individual trader and what we call the trading triad. Need to understand the market, the trade, as well as the trader individually. One of the strongest tools that we have for doing that understanding of the trader, or coming to that understanding, is the natal horoscope and the ability to interpret that. This is one of the reasons why I provide these sessions for clients on a personal basis, private basis, and finding the money in your horoscope that involves an in-depth look at the natal chart and the factors that can help you be successful in the markets as a trader or dealing with other financial matters as well. Great questions. Does that help some, Solomon? Okay. I use the questions as an excuse to ramble. Sorry about that. But no, we definitely appreciate your input and your questions as well. And the answer is yes, our natal charts can give us clues as well. And Solomon says, thank you for your questions. Anybody else with a question or a concern here? So again, we'll just review these 3 steps to take very, very quickly here. Step 1, click the link and get the process started. By the way, when I mentioned clicking the link here, we're going to shut down this webinar in just a moment. When we do so, that link will go away. So you can write down that HTTP URL there and get to the link after the webinar is over. But I would suggest just going ahead and clicking that blue button right now, and it should take you to that order page. It does not commit you to ordering the course. But what happens is you click that, and then when you get to this, it'll take you to this page, and that will stay open in another window or tab of your browser. And that will stay open once we close down the webinar. So it's kind of a sneaky way of making sure that you can get in on this if you need to make the decision which payment plan you want or think about it or whatever. So by all means, go ahead and then and take a moment right now to click this button, if you see that on the side of the screen, because that will open up that window in the browser for you. So let that do that, and that will get it to you. And again, if you're watching the recording of this, we'll try to include that link here as well. Can you speak how his work would be used for dates upcoming in June? Well, first and foremost, we have the solstice, as you pointed out earlier, Don, and that is a critical event in Gann's calendar there. So one of the things with this square of 9 diagram that we showed that's part of our training program here is that it correlates dates as well as prices. And so there are specific correlations there that show up, and we can use this for calendar-based research. It's not only finding these anniversary dates, but also looking at the elements of the solar cycle, and then also paying attention to the key planetary alignments. The planetary aspects were something that Gann paid a great deal of attention to, as well as his work with eclipse studies. And so we have the dates upcoming in June. What we've just seen here, of course, on the 10th of June was a solar eclipse, and the markets are still very much responding to that. And so we've got forecasts based on that with our eclipse studies. And that, again, is based on Gann's work. One of the fascinating things about Gann is he will talk about, if you read some of his work on commodities trading and other markets, he will list what he called his campaigns. And so he would talk about when he would enter a position, what the price was, and then when he would change a stop and move things there. And sometimes he'd say, there was a natural event that occurred on such and such a date, and we recalibrated our positions at that point. And you go back and you look in an ephemeris and what natural event occurred on this specific date that he mentioned back in 1924, or whatever the date is he's quoting. And it turns out it was a solar eclipse or a lunar eclipse that occurred on that date. And so we know by studying Gann's work and doing this kind of research, the degree to which he actually applied the astrological principles. So we're doing exactly the same kind of thing here on a shorter term time frame as we look at the markets week after week. Of course, we have our weekly publication with our Financial Cycles weekly service. We have our Gold Plus Elite membership program attached to that. So we have conference calls with members to help them interpret the markets at a little higher level. And in addition to that, we have our individual, coaching and consulting programs as well. So if you're interested in going into more depth, all those are available. My recommendation was, if you're interested in looking at some of the Gann methodologies, the 101 course here is a great starting point because it helps you get familiar with some of those core concepts and begin to understand how they're applied rather than trying to get deep in the weeds. Solomon says there are many more questions. Okay. We can take more time if you wish here. However, I would recommend going ahead, getting connected with this class at this time. And unless there are more questions that pop in here, we will wrap things up here in about a minute. Just leave time for one or two more comments. Don't want to detain you inordinately here. So I hope that has answered some of the major concerns here. We're going to go ahead and shut things down. I want to thank you for sharing this time with me today. And we do have this is kind of a makeup session for the exploding webinar from yesterday. So I see Jupiter will go retrograde on the solstice the next 24 hours. Will that be something to look for, planetary lines wise? Yes. So what's going on here? Rapid succession is we have that Jupiter dynamic as well as a Mercury station impacting market action around the time of the solstice. There's a lot of factors combining here that make this a particularly important time. Now, based on Gann's work alone, we could say, okay, solstice coming in, that's going to be important. We want to pay attention to that, right? So what happens here is that we have the solstice coming in, and actually the Jupiter retrograde station is a few hours prior to the solstice. It comes up on the 20th in the morning hours Eastern time, and then just before midnight is the actual time of the solstice itself. So we've got the Jupiter retrograde station, the solstice. That solstice comes in late in the day on the 20th there. And then on the 22nd, we have Mercury going direct. And then on the 25th, Neptune goes retrograde. So you can see this whole sequence of planetary dynamics clustering around the solstice at this particular time. So that is of a great deal of interest. Sometimes we'll see an eclipse that occurs right on the solstice, that sort of thing, so we get extra emphasis that way. But what we learned to do with Gann's work is watch the retrograde stations, or the direct stations, planets moving in and out of retrograde motion, as well as the planetary ingresses, specifically the solstice and the equinoxes. So we're looking at the ingress into Aries, into Cancer, into Libra, and into Capricorn, which mark the beginnings of the 4 seasons of the year. And that's interesting. John says there are a few ending as well as next week, time of exuberance and exaggeration. Well, the Neptune dynamic, certainly, yeah. One of the things we've been tracking here is this recent Sun in the waxing square to Neptune, which occurred this past weekend. And we're seeing some of the reaction there. But what's intriguing is, even though that tends to promote some exuberance, exaggeration, more optimism, it's a little bit of a delayed reaction based on our back testing there with that particular Neptune pattern with the Sun-Neptune dynamic, which is why we were calling for a buy at the end of the trading day for the S&P on Thursday the 17th. Could have done that on Friday the 18th just as well. It was kind of splitting hairs there. So the market did drop lower substantially on Friday. We were not trying to nail the exact bottom as much as we were doing our back testing and saying this has the highest probability of a successful trade if we're moving in on June 17th. And then it's roughly a 4-week swing trade there. So coming up until around the 19th, 20th, 21st of July would be the exit position there. And based on our back testing, that has about a 76 or 77% probability of being a profitable trade. So that, that's the way we work with this knowledge is we're trying to nail the dates, understand the concepts, combine what Gann was talking about, and then we go and study what the markets have done in terms of actual performance with our back testing, which gives us a specific percentage of likelihood of it occurring again. So even though, as we said with our disclaimer at the very beginning, past performance does not guarantee future results, that's exactly what we try to do, is look at what has happened in the past and understand the probability then of future results, so we can see how well has this operated in the past. If we have a particular planetary phenomenon or anniversary date, and we go back and check it over a 10-year period, and it has worked 1 time out of 10, then we're not, we don't have the odds in our favor. It hadn't worked before. It's unlikely to start working right now. But if it's the opposite, if we got, say, 80% probability of this happening, or it's happened 80% of the time before for a significant market move, then we have a little bit more confidence in entering a trade on that basis. Okay. Don says, nice job. Thanks very much for your efforts. Appreciate your contributions here today, Don. Anybody else have a closing comment? I'm running out of voice, so we need to shut this down. And I can't tell you how delighted I am that the good old internet cooperated through our whole time together. We didn't crash once, and yesterday nothing was working for an extended period of time here. So I'm glad that we made the additional effort here. And thank you all for joining us here today. Hope you'll be joining us for Gann Plan Trading Success 101 training program. Remember, if you sign up now, or if you're watching the recording of this, we'll honor that commitment as well in terms of that bonus for you that comes with that. So follow those links and make that happen. So that's good. All right. That says vibrations. We've got the law of vibration working. Thanks again, everybody. Have a great evening. We'll be talking again real soon. Solomon just popped in a great statement. got to read that for the record, Solomon. Thank you, Tim. I believe the planets are like a map to the treasure chest, and our trading is the key that opens it. Love that analogy. The planets certainly are part of the map anyway, and so that's why we look at the Gann studies to try to get that broader perspective. And it's kind of like we need to know what island we're on first, and then we get the map that leads us down to where the treasure is buried. So, thank you all for your contributions. Again, we'll try to close it down here. Appreciate you sticking around with these extra comments. So this is Tim Boss from FinancialCyclesWeekly.com. Thanks for joining our conversation here today and helping us celebrate the 66th anniversary of W.D. Gann's passing and the efforts here to sustain our attention on Gann and to give you the full benefits from your participation with Gann in the markets. And the way to do that is get engaged here with our training program and Gann Plan Trading Success 101. It's ready for you right now. Have a great evening. Thanks, everybody.